Welcome to another exciting episode of Unraveling Intellectual Property with Michael Stein. Today, I've got back Brian Peretti, who is CEO and founder of Everstream Advisors and was formerly with the U.S. Treasury as Chief Technology Officer and Deputy Chief AI Officer. Brian, thanks you for coming back.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
So let's get into some technology. I know you're into that stuff. My
Mhm.
audience is into that stuff. Let's start with AI. What does Treasury do with AI? What did you do with AI? How does that impact the private sector?
Yeah, I think AI is just a really exciting technology, right? We're going to be looking to be able to do stuff that we weren't able to do before. I actually had to write a agreement at one point, being a former lawyer, but not in a legal
Oh,
capacity. And one of the things I had to write an agreement to be able to put out the terms of use for AI. Normally, that would probably take me a day or so to be able to craft it, all the paragraphs. I put it into AI. I was able to get a rough document back in about 20 seconds. I was then able to spend maybe about an hour to be able to fix it and be able to make it to something that I could then present to the attorneys who are at Treasury. So that kind of being able to take care of some of those really rudimentary tasks of just plain drafting will be very beneficial, I
well,
think, at the end of the day.
what did you feed into the AI? Did you have a draft agreement, or did you?
So, the key for AI usage is really what's called prompt engineering.
Right.
And prompt engineering is what you put into the feature to be able to say, this is what I want. And what you need to do, of course, is to be able to put in enough specifics so that you can get a document that's useful, but not a document that's not overly broad or general that doesn't help. I've seen many documents that came over to me that were clearly AI generated and never even proofread. And I could tell, like, I was like, what is this? Right. And they're like, well, it was a template somebody sent me. I was like, no, it's not. It clearly wasn't that. But if you could do the prompt engineering right, you may be able to get some really good information. However, you also have to understand AI is not helpful. So if anybody out there ever tries to do any workout programs and you put it into AI of give me a template of how to use stuff, it comes out usually pretty wrong. You may over exercise one body part, you may under exercise another one. So it's still not smart in that way to really understand and tailor that. So that's where the human is really critical. And one of the things I had to focus on when I was at Treasury was not only the rollout of AI across the organization, with the security functionalities in that, so that your taxpayer information would not show up in AI somewhere. So we had to create barriers to make sure nothing could leak out. But we also had to think about the training aspect. And that was really a difficult challenge, right? You have employees who probably hate their job to some extent, or at least hate portions of their job. And they would love to be able to not have to do that because they love the piece of the job that they really love. How do you encourage folks to be able to say, let's offload some of the tasks to AI if possible, so that you could focus on the thing that really makes you want to come into work every day? That's scary though. And we had a lot of issues with folks saying, well, but that's my job. It's like, yeah,
Right. I
but
would think
that's not
that
what
people would
excites you.
oh, well, AI is just going, you're just asking me to replace myself.
Yeah. So if you think about it, right, anybody who's been around for a long time, think about when the word processor came about, right? And imagine what a secretary looked like back in the 1950s and 60s, right? Mad Men, right? They wrote the stenography down, they took care of stuff. And then once the word processor came around, they kind of got scared. Hey, what's my job? Do I still have a job? And what happens, your job evolved to be more critical functions, right? Your boss could type their own email, right? Your boss could do stuff, but you as an admin became more important because now you were doing the more difficult stuff. And if we continue down this path, right, the easier stuff, the things that aren't really exciting to you, can maybe be automated, and the hard stuff where a human has to be involved can be really exciting. So how do you encourage folks who are in that space? And this was also really difficult, right? Regarding all the transition that was going on at the same time. People were like, well, how's this going to affect me? Well, hopefully we upskill you. We have better skills. I knew everyone I was talking to was really brilliant, but we were not using all of their knowledge base because we were stuck in a small job somewhere. But I kept saying folks, you tell me what you want to do. You know how to do this better. let's use technology to make it better for you so that we can really go to that next level
And did
and
you
you
get
can get there.
buy-in from people?
I got buy-in from some people. So some people were really excited about it. And I said, well, tell me what is the thing that's been impeding you from getting to that next level, right? What's the task that you know can be done better, but you have to do that. So, our travel program, I think we had like 34 steps to do a travel effort from when you identified you need to travel somewhere to when you finally submit your invoice, right? And you're going through all these steps. The same when we were doing stuff with hiring, right? It was like a 54-step process. And it's kind of like, are all these steps really critical or were they just put in? And one of the things we found was that we were able to get rid of some of those things to get to a better spot. Now, those people who had that job were nervous. They put in some of those barriers to be able to make sure you had to come back to talk to them. And so we said, we're not going to fire anybody. We're not letting anybody go tied to this. We need you. We need you in more critical spaces, but let's work together so that because we're going to get to the place where these things are more automated and moving forward. Those folks who are comfortable with technology jumped at the opportunity. Those who are not, who are kind of in their shell some point, some people left because they were afraid. Other people said, well, let's work through this. And you had to coach them through that process to get there. But I think at the end of the day, right, all those folks are out there are going to see, yeah, if I value your expertise and I tell you, help me make this better, they're going to be excited about it.
So I
Right. And
mean,
that's where we really need to do stuff.
kind of making a little plug for you, since you're doing this for the government, I assume you could do this for private business.
Exactly. Exactly. So it's one of those
Similar
areas that
concepts, just governments on a much huger scale.
exactly. So, that's one of the things. How do you coach? How do you set up the program? How do you make sure that, you're not losing because you don't want to lose employees. You want to right size the employee to the right task you have, right? You've decided to hire a person for a specific position. How do I then be able to use that person to be able to use all their knowledge base, not just that one small thing? Because most people identify what the problem is. They know how to solve it. They know what they need to do to get there. Sometimes they don't have the tools. Sometimes they don't have buy-in from leadership. How do we get to that space?
So for all this training, was it in-house? Did you outsource it to companies? Like, how does that work within the government?
Yeah, so there was already some training that existed from GSA that was made available. There was also some of the vendors who we were using who actually had their own training modules out there. Some were modules that were pre-done, some were interactive, right? And so we'd set up groups of people. We would go out to their locations and actually have them do a live person demonstration walking through that. We had other times where it was remote. So we used different methods to be able to figure out how best to be able to do that. But we knew the vendor was responsible for how to use their product best. So we really leaned on the vendor hard to say that, tell us, show us how to be able to do this stuff. What could we be doing in that area? And how do we use this to the fullest extent? What we found is in many of those conversations, the needs of Treasury were not identified by the vendor in the offering. And so by tasking back to the vendor, hey, that's great product, but this is what we need, right? They were then able to modify the product and the offering to us to be able to deliver it in a way in which we needed to use it and really be successful at the end of the day, which helped them also as they were, working to other clients too. And of course, safety and security was always a paramount concern. So when they said, "Hey, why don't you do this?" Our question would always be, "Yeah, but is that going to lead to, certain information being on the front page of the Washington Post tomorrow?" And unless they can answer, "No, here are the barriers, and here's how we can show you that they exist," we would not really use that program. Not maybe as much a concern in some other firms, but within government, when you're dealing with sensitive taxpayer and other information, you definitely don't want that to get into the hands of the wrong people.
Let's get to future of quantum.
Yeah,
What is quantum? What do you mean by that? We don't have a ton of time,
yeah,
but tell us.
yeah. Well, quantum is really this next type of generation of computer. Instead of using ones and zeros, it uses a ability to float between ones and zeros to make calculations. There's a couple of challenges. It seems to work from advanced physics that it should be able to work. The challenge is, of course, creating a quantum computer. You have to be almost close to absolute zero to be able to have these things operate. So it's not at the present day large scale, and we have to continue to build out these efforts. Uh, if the in whenever a quantum computer does exist, which we believe will happen, and there are some small segments of quantum computing that actually work right now, it may change a lot of the dynamics that are out there. So regular cryptology just probably won't work within a quantum environment, which means we'll have to think about how we protect information and how we protect information that was already stolen in the past that now could be decoded. So there's a lot of challenges out there in this space. And then the question is, how do you actually apply it to your actual
So when you
operations?
say future of quantum, are you helping guide private industry, or what what about the future of quantum are you talking about?
Yeah, so I've had conversations with many folks. I know NIST is working on this, and some of the big computing companies are looking at this, but really trying to have the conversation and really help to work with clients on where that's going. For the average person, me or you, it's not going to be a concern for us anytime soon. People have much more harder theoretical problems, is where quantum is probably going to be very helpful. So quantum computer can make many more calculations than a current classical computer, the one you have on your desk right now that you're probably watching this through, even your phone. But those are going to be a much different in the future of how we're going to be able to tackle this. Maybe one day a quantum computer can figure out how we can actually make a photon torpedo. I don't know. But it'll be interesting that, what kind of new hard problems these can tackle that our current classical computers just can't. When will this be coming about? Well, I mean, I was told 10 years ago that quantum was 5 years around the corner. Right now, I'm hearing it's still about 5 years around from here. But, it is definitely making progress to get there. And, we have to think about how this may be deployed across organizations. In my private sector role, private capacity right now, probably not a big concern for me. I'm not going to buy one of these computers, but government is definitely thinking about this.
Well, it's going to be
And,
hard to keep my laptop at close to 0 degrees.
well, I mean, that's part of the challenge, right? A quantum computer, basically what they do is guess at what the right answer is, where your computer gives you the answer. But they can work on harder problems that a classical computer just can't do. So when you have a quantum computer, you will have to have a classical computer next to it to check the work that the quantum computer has done. So maybe you'll have two on your desk. One will be in some kind of freezer of some sort, and then one will be this other computer.
So
But
you're telling me I should invest in the laptop freezer business?
well, I would say probably a much bigger environment than a freezer. If anybody sees what computers look like in the 50s, you'll probably look around that stage right now.
All right.
So maybe a big cold storage locker, but it's probably not something you're going to work on the weekend in your garage. So
Gotcha.
yeah. So
Um,
exciting area out there, right? Stuff coming down the line. But these are just some of the emergent technologies, right? AI is probably here, but as we hear across the board, it's not anywhere adapted or used to the extent. And one of the big problems is data isn't ready. So, you may hear that some of these large language models are already trained on all the information on the internet. You see all that, Disney and OpenAI made an agreement yesterday regarding sharing some content,
uh,
but all that information is probably only about 3 or 4% of all information created. All the rest of it is not AI ready. So how do we figure out how to be able to move that non AI ready information into AI ready information so that you can actually use stuff? And in the financial sector, one of the problems we've always had is that we have models and they almost always fail. And the reason why they fail is because there's not enough information, right? So we have stock market information for what, maybe 150, 200 years. But, different things can happen in different ways. So, for example, anybody watch the Monday Night Football game, right? It's something happened that no AI device could ever figure out. Uh, Hurts from the Eagles threw both an interception and fumbled on the same play. Never happened before. AI has never seen that, so it would never be able to tell you that could ever happen.
I thought I saw that there was someone committed two turnovers on one play in like 1978.
Yeah, but not an interception and a fumble,
Oh, okay. All
right?
right.
So that's different, right? Because it's never happened before.
Right.
And because of that, AI cannot tell you that it would ever happen because not a data.
All
Now, if you
right,
think
Brian,
about it,
but
yeah,
I got to
yeah.
stop you here.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I know
No
there's a
problem.
ton to talk
I can,
about. I'm going to have you back because there's a, but as far as companies out there, as far as this stuff, Brian knows his stuff. He's worked on it large scale. I'm sure he can adapt it to smaller scale. Thank you so much for being on this episode of Unraveling Intellectual Property with Michael Stein. I look forward to having you on again. And
thank you very
to
much.
and to all my viewers out there, thank you for tuning in. Until next time.